Global Age Media, your number one source of power and knowledge in a fast-changing world.
PDP's epic meltdown, betrayals, battles, and the brink of extinction, 2015 to 2026. Picture this. Born in 1998 from the ashes of military rule, Nigeria's People's Democratic Party, PDP, stormed into power as Africa's political titan, only to devour itself from within. Olusegun Obasanjo, hand-picked with Atiku Abubakar as his deputy, clinched victory in 1999, but cracks appeared immediately. Leadership battles raged, like the 2008 chairman scramble, where rivals bowed out amid shadowy deals, fracturing the party's core. Betrayals escalated. Defections to rivals like the Action Congress of Nigeria in 2011, fueled by zoning wars that pitted North against South. Obasanjo himself meddled in 2007 primaries, sabotaging Atiku's dreams and igniting personal vendettas. Umaru Yar'Adua's fraud-tainted 2007 win crumbled with his 2010 death, unleashing factional bloodbaths under Goodluck Jonathan, whose 2011 triumph hid exploding ethnic rifts and violent protests. The self-destruction hit fever pitch in 2015. Internal squabbles, betrayals, and fraud claims handed power to APC's Muhammadu Buhari, costing PDP dearly. Atiku bolted and battled his old party in 2019, while Jonathan's 2023 flop exposed endless infighting. By 2025, mass defections, like governors fleeing to APC amid cries of betrayal of mandate, left PDP in ruins, with blame games, Wike's accusations against Makinde, and a worst fate in history of deceit and implosion. As 2026 looms, with primaries and conventions set to ignite fresh chaos ahead of the 2027 elections, predictions swirl of PDP's total collapse, potentially without a presidential candidate due to unrelenting internal wrangling. From powerhouse to fractured shell, PDP's saga of chaos and backstabbing is a cautionary thriller. Ready for the meltdown? The Great Fall, 16 years over. 2015 shock. Imagine the sheer audacity of a political machine so dominant, so bloated with confidence, that it dared to prophesy its own eternal reign. In 2008, Vincent Ogbulafor, the national chairman of Nigeria's People's Democratic Party, stood tall and declared with unshakable conviction that the PDP would rule Nigeria for no less than 60 years. This wasn't just bravado. It was a manifesto of invincibility, born from the party's unchallenged grip on power since 1999. But oh, how prophecies can turn into curses when arrogance blinds the seer. This boast, echoed in party halls and media headlines, masked the festering wounds within, a toxic brew of internal rot that would soon erupt into full-blown self-destruction. And who better to sound the alarm than the party's own architect, Olusegun Obasanjo, the elder statesman whose warnings thundered like storm clouds over a sinking ship. Obasanjo, the two-term president who had helped forge the PDP into Africa's largest political behemoth, didn't mince words. As early as 2013, he unleashed a scathing 18-page open letter to President Goodluck Jonathan, titled, "Before It Is Too Late." In it, he painted a vivid portrait of a party devouring itself from the inside, a cancer of corruption spreading unchecked, fueled by rigged primaries, embezzlement, and a leadership drunk on power. He accused Jonathan of squandering Nigeria's opportunities, allowing fraud to flourish while the people's cries went unheard. "You have done me grave injustice with your attitude and response to the issues raised," Obasanjo wrote, his words dripping with betrayal. He lambasted the imposition of candidates, the godfatherism that stifled true democracy within the party, and the ethnic manipulations that pitted regions against one another. This wasn't mere criticism. It was a prophecy of doom from the man who knew the PDP's skeletons better than anyone. By February 2015, Obasanjo's frustration boiled over in a dramatic act of rejection. He publicly tore his PDP membership card to shreds, declaring the party dead to him. "They said they want to expel me from PDP, although I have not been told, but I have my ears on the ground," he thundered, his voice echoing the growing chorus of disillusioned insiders. This symbolic shredding wasn't just personal, it signaled the unraveling of the party's fragile unity, exposing fractures that had been widening for years. These internal demons didn't emerge overnight. The PDP's lack of internal democracy had long been its Achilles heel. A system where godfathers pulled strings, primaries were stage-managed, and dissent was crushed under the weight of loyalty oaths. As one analyst put it, the party operated like a leviathan, swallowing its own members in a crisis of imposed leadership and suppressed voices. This absence of genuine intra-party competition bred resentment, turning allies into adversaries, and setting the stage for the unforgivable sin that would accelerate the fall. The defection of the G7 governors in 2014. Picture the scene of betrayal. 7 powerful governors, Rotimi Amechi of Rivers, Rabiu Kwankwaso of Kano, Murtala Nyako of Adamawa, Aliyu Magatakada Wamako of Sokoto, Abdul Fattah Ahmed of Kwara, Sule Lamido of Jigawa, and Babangida Aliyu of Niger, stormed out of the PDP's National Convention in Abuja on August 31, 2013, their faces etched with fury. They formed the new PDP faction, a splinter group that decried the tyranny of National Chairman Bamanga Tukur and President Jonathan's overreach. The grievances were legion. Fruitless dialogues with the president, who ignored their calls for reform. Tukur's iron-fisted control that marginalized northern interests. And the blatant violation of the party's zoning formula, which promised rotational presidency between North and South, but seemed rigged to favor Jonathan's re-election bid. "We are intact," Babangida Aliyu insisted later, even as the group splintered further. By November 2013, 5 of them, Amechi, Kwankwaso, Nyako, Wamako, and Ahmed, officially defected to the opposition, merging with the nascent All Progressives Congress, APC. This wasn't a quiet exit, it was a seismic rupture, with shockwaves rippling through party structures. Tukur himself expressed shock at the move, but insiders knew it was inevitable. The culmination of years of internal squabbles where northern governors felt sidelined, their ambitions crushed by southern dominance. The defection drained the PDP of key resources, votes, and influence in crucial states, turning what was once a united front into a battlefield of egos and vendettas. Compounding this internal hemorrhage was the PDP's catastrophic handling of the Boko Haram insurgency, a crisis that exposed the party's leadership as fractured and inept. Under Jonathan's administration, the terrorist group's rampage escalated from 2009 onward, with bombings, kidnappings, and massacres that claimed thousands of lives. The 2014 abduction of 276 Chibok schoolgirls became a global symbol of failure, but internally, it highlighted deeper rifts. Accusations flew that the insecurity was politicized. Northern politicians whispered of deliberate neglect to weaken their region, while southern leaders blamed sabotage by opposition elements. Military setbacks, corruption in arms procurement, later revealed in scandals like the Dasuki arms deal, and a presidency that seemed paralyzed, bred distrust within the party. Governors in affected states clashed with federal officials over resource allocation, and the PDP's national executive failed to present a unified response. This blackmail of incompetence eroded voter faith, turning the North, once a PDP stronghold, into hostile territory. The insurgency wasn't just an external threat, it amplified internal divisions, with ethno-religious tensions splitting the party along Muslim-Christian lines, as Obasanjo had warned. By 2015, Boko Haram had crippled the administration's credibility, making Jonathan's re-election bid a desperate gamble amid whispers of betrayal from within his own ranks. Then came the moment that crystallized the fall, the phone call heard globally. On March 31, 2015, as election results trickled in, showing Muhammadu Buhari of the APC surging ahead, Jonathan picked up the phone and conceded defeat, a historic first in Nigeria's turbulent democracy. "My ambition is not worth the blood of any Nigerian," he declared, his voice steady but laced with the weight of inevitability. This graceful act averted potential violence, earning international praise, but it masked the PDP's utter collapse. The party lost the presidency, the National Assembly majority, and numerous governorships in a landslide fueled by internal betrayals. Fraud claims, squabbles over rigging, and the economic downturn under Jonathan's watch, exacerbated by falling oil prices and unaddressed corruption, sealed the deal. The shockwaves reverberated. PDP strongholds in the north flipped to APC, and even in the south, defections signaled the end of an era. Finally, the curse of opposition took hold. The APC, born from the PDP's own defectors, became the irresistible magnet for the disillusioned. Post-2015, a flood of PDP elites, governors, senators, and lawmakers streamed to the new ruling party, drawn by power's allure and repelled by the PDP's imploding chaos. This defection train, as it was dubbed, included not just the G7 remnants, but waves of others, like the 11 PDP senators who jumped ship in January 2014. The party's internal conflicts, north-south zoning wars, leadership bloodbaths, and a failure to reconcile factions ensured that opposition became a graveyard for loyalty. By 2015, the PDP was no longer the Leviathan. It was a fractured shell, hemorrhaging members and relevance. The Great Fall wasn't just a loss at the polls, it was a self-inflicted wound, a dramatic implosion where arrogance met betrayal, and a once mighty party brought itself to its knees. But could this be the end? Or just the start of even bloodier internal wars? The saga continues. Leadership Blood War, McCarthy versus Sheriff. In the smoldering ruins of the PDP's 2015 electoral catastrophe, a new inferno ignited. One fueled not by external foes, but by the party's own insatiable hunger for control, where ambition clashed with loyalty in a brutal spectacle of betrayal and power grabs. Ali Modu Sheriff, the enigmatic former governor of Borno State, a man whose entry into the PDP's leadership was meant to be a salvage operation, but morphed into a devastating siege. Appointed as acting national chairman in February 2016 to fill the vacuum left by Adamu Muazu's resignation after the devastating polls, Sheriff was initially hailed as a unifier. Backed by the National Caucus, the Board of Trustees, BOT, and the Governor's Forum, with a resounding 69 votes in his favor, he seemed poised to steer the fractured ship. But beneath this facade of consensus lurked the seeds of destruction. Sheriff's controversial past as a founder of the rival All Nigeria People's Party, ANPP. Whispers of his ties to Boko Haram's origins, and a personality that brooked no dissent. The PDP, already reeling from zoning betrayals and corruption scandals, had invited a godfather who would refuse to relinquish his throne, capturing the party structure in a move that exposed the depths of its internal anarchy. The stage for this blood war was set at the ill-fated National Convention in Port Harcourt on May 21, 2016. A gathering intended to heal wounds, but instead tore them wide open. Sheriff, sensing the winds of opposition turning against him, convened an emergency meeting with members of the National Working Committee, NWC, at a nearby hotel, declaring the convention postponed due to conflicting court orders. A Lagos High Court had barred elections for key positions like chairman, secretary, and auditor, while a federal high court in Lagos affirmed Sheriff's authenticity as leader. Yet, in a brazen act of defiance, the convention proceeded without him, dissolving the NWC and appointing Senator Ahmed Mohamed McCarthy, a former Kaduna governor and respected party elder, as head of a national caretaker committee to oversee affairs for 90 days. This move, cheered by governors and BOT members who had grown wary of Sheriff's domineering style, was a direct slap to his authority. Sheriff roared back, labeling the convention illegal and null and void, insisting his tenure extended until 2018. What followed was a masterclass in political siege. On June 13, 2016, Sheriff, flanked by former National Secretary Professor Wale Oladipo and former National Auditor Alhaji Adewale Adeyanju, descended upon the PDP National Secretariat at Wadata Plaza in Abuja with a convoy of supporters. Blocked initially by police, he negotiated entry by 1:23 p.m., armed with court documents served on the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and security forces. From the NWC hall, he addressed the press, defiantly resuming duties and accusing his detractors of staining his reputation despite his sacrifices for the party. This audacious capture of the headquarters wasn't just a logistical victory, it symbolized the PDP's fatal flaw, an absence of internal mechanisms to resolve disputes without descending into chaos, where legal loopholes became weapons in a war of egos. The courtroom chaos that ensued turned the PDP into a laughingstock, a party divided against itself, with 2 chairmen, 2 secretariats, and 1 crumbling identity. Sheriff's faction clung to the official Wadata Plaza headquarters, bolstered by a Lagos Federal High Court ruling that provided police protection and affirmed his leadership. Meanwhile, McCarthy's caretaker committee operated from a makeshift base, rallying governors, BOT members, and a majority of the party's lawmakers. The dueling claims led to a frenzy of litigation. Sheriff filed over 10 applications across courts, a tactic the Supreme Court later derided as infantile desperation. Conflicting injunctions flew. An ex parte order from Port Harcourt temporarily restrained Sheriff, but it expired unrenewed on June 9, 2016, clearing his path. The appeal court in Port Harcourt, in February 2017, initially sided with Sheriff, sacking McCarthy's committee and deepening the rift. This legal ping-pong exposed the PDP's internal rot. A constitution that vested supreme authority in national conventions but was routinely ignored. Godfatherism that prioritized personal alliances over party unity, and ethnic regional divides that Sheriff exploited by portraying himself as a northern defender against southern overreach. Betrayals abounded. Former allies like Ekiti Governor Ayodele Fayose, who had once championed Sheriff's appointment, now branded him an APC mole, sponsored by the ruling party to dismantle the PDP from within. Sheriff's denials rang hollow amid accusations of external backing, including alleged state security service involvement in securing his access to the Secretariat. The party, once Africa's largest, was now a house divided, with parallel structures issuing conflicting directives, freezing bank accounts, and paralyzing operations ahead of crucial elections in Edo and Ondo states. Amid this turmoil, the NWC staff mutiny erupted like a powder keg, highlighting the grassroots rebellion against imposed leadership and the PDP's failure to foster loyalty beyond elite circles. On June 15, 2016, just 2 days after Sheriff's takeover, over 200 aggrieved youths from groups like the PDP National Rebirth Group and PDP Concerned Rescue Group stormed the Wadata Plaza Secretariat at 6:30 a.m., braving heavy rain with placards screaming, "Sheriff is not a PDP member! Sheriff must go!" and "McCarthy is real!" In a dramatic escalation, they sealed off the premises, forcibly evicted Sheriff's allies, and handed the keys to BOT chairman, Senator Walid Jibrin. Oladipo and Adeyanju fled through a back entrance amid the chaos, later dismissing the invaders as miscreants, but unable to reclaim control. This wasn't mere protest. It was a full-blown mutiny by party workers who had endured salary cuts, unpaid allowances, and the indignity of serving under a chairman they viewed as an interloper. Staff openly defied Sheriff, aligning with McCarthy's faction and refusing to recognize his authority, citing the Port Harcourt Convention's legitimacy. The incident underscored deeper internal problems: a disconnect between the national executive and base-level members, financial mismanagement that left workers destitute, and a culture of imposition where chairmen were selected by godfathers rather than elected democratically. Sheriff's camp accused the mutineers of being sponsored by McCarthy, further fueling paranoia and division. The lightened security, State Security Service withdrawing amid bias allegations, revealed how external forces amplified internal betrayals, turning the Secretariat into a battlefield where loyalty was bought and sold. Desperate for resolution, the factions fell into the peace accord trap, a series of fleeting reconciliations that collapsed like houses of cards, exposing the PDP's incurable trust deficit. In September 2016, Sheriff and McCarthy met under the auspices of former President Goodluck Jonathan, agreeing to unify the party and halt litigation. "The PDP leadership crisis is over," they proclaimed, with spokespersons like Cairo Ojugbo hailing it as a breakthrough. But within days, the accord unraveled. Sheriff resumed court battles, and McCarthy's side accused him of insincerity. Another attempt in March 2017 saw McCarthy's faction initially surrender, recognizing Sheriff as chairman per an appeal court ruling. But this too dissolved amid denials and fresh ultimatums. The McCarthy camp, through spokesperson Dio Adeyeye, rejected claims of a binding agreement, insisting on broader stakeholder involvement. These failures weren't accidental. They stemmed from entrenched grudges, Sheriff's perceived APC infiltration, McCarthy's insistence on convention supremacy, and governors maneuvering to protect their fiefdoms. Meetings with Jonathan in February 2017 yielded platitudes about the party's survival, but no concrete unity. The accords became traps, luring factions into false hope only to explode in recriminations, prolonging the crisis and draining resources. By mid-2017, the PDP was financially crippled, with frozen accounts and legal fees mounting, a direct result of leaders prioritizing personal vendettas over collective revival. The climax arrived with the Supreme Court's verdict on July 12, 2017. A thunderous judgment that sacked Sheriff and affirmed McCarthy as the authentic chairman. In a unanimous ruling by a five-man panel led by Chief Justice Walter Onogen, the court upheld the Port Harcourt Convention's decisions, citing Article 33 of the PDP Constitution that enshrined the National Convention's supremacy. "All members are bound by the decisions of the National Convention," the justices declared, rebuking the appeal court's error in disregarding it. Sheriff's infantile desperation in court shopping was lambasted, and the ruling clarified that national officers could be removed without a no-confidence vote after 2 years. The next day, McCarthy triumphantly took over the Wadata Plaza headquarters amid jubilant celebrations. Drummers, singers, and a throng of supporters, including Professor Jerry Garner, Lyle Imoke, and Chief Femi Fani-Kayode. Jonathan congratulated the victors, urging a "no victor, no vanquished" approach, and calling defectors home. McCarthy vowed to recapture power in 2019, promising unity and lessons from past mistakes. Yet this peace was temporary at best. Sheriff's faction fell silent, but the scars lingered. The verdict set precedents for future splits, like the 2025 VK expulsion battles, where similar court maneuvers and factional expulsions echoed this era's chaos. The PDP emerged battered, its internal democracy in tatters, proving that victories in court couldn't heal the betrayals that had nearly torn it asunder. Temporary peace? See how old rifts fueled new betrayals ahead. The G5 Mutiny. Why they betrayed Atiku. 2023 Sabotage. In the shadowed corridors of Nigeria's political arena, where alliances are forged in whispers and shattered in broad daylight, the People's Democratic Party's wounds from past defeats festered into a full-scale rebellion. By 2023, the PDP, still licking its scars from the 2015 debacle, faced a mutiny that would etch betrayal into its history books. The rise of the G5 governors, a quintet of defiant leaders whose actions didn't just undermine their party's presidential bid, they orchestrated its sabotage from within. Led by the fiery Nyesom Wike of Rivers State, alongside Seyi Makinde, Oyo, Samuel Ortom, Benue, Ifeanyi Ugwanyi, Enugu, and Okezie Ikpeazu, Abia. This group emerged as a force of reckoning after Atiku Abubakar's controversial victory in the PDP primaries. What began as a principled stand against perceived injustice morphed into a calculated vendetta, exposing the party's chronic ailments, zoning betrayals, ego-driven ultimatums, and a culture of self-sabotage that drained resources and morale. The G5's mutiny wasn't merely dissent, it was a dagger twisted in the PDP's back, accelerating its descent into chaos and setting precedents for the mass defections that would plague it into 2025. The zoning betrayal stood at the heart of this uprising, a festering grievance rooted in the PDP's own constitution and its unwritten pact for rotational equity between Nigeria's north and south. For years, the party's Article 7(3)(c) mandated zoning of key positions to ensure balance, a mechanism designed to prevent regional dominance and foster national unity. Yet, in the lead-up to the 2023 primaries, the PDP's zoning committee, under pressure from northern power brokers, threw the presidential ticket open to all aspirants, a move decried as a blatant betrayal by southern stakeholders. Atiku Abubakar, the northern elder statesman and perennial contender, clinched the nomination with 371 votes against Wike's 237, ensuring that both the presidential candidate and national chairman Iyorchia Ayu hailed from the north. This double northern hold was seen as a slap to the south, which had loyally supported northern presidencies like Umaru Yar'Adua and Goodluck Jonathan's incomplete term. Wike and his allies thundered against this injustice, arguing that after 8 years of Muhammadu Buhari's northern rule, power should shift southwards to heal ethnic divides. Ortom later revealed the G5's frustration. They had backed Wike for the ticket, believing in southern rotation, only to watch northern blocs consolidate power through backroom deals and delegate manipulations. This betrayal wasn't abstract. It ignited regional resentments, with southern governors feeling marginalized in a party they had built. The open ticket, critics charged, was a rigged game, succumbing to blackmail from northern interests who viewed zoning to the south as discriminatory. By keeping the ticket north, the PDP not only alienated its southern base, but sowed seeds of division that would reap electoral disaster, proving once again how internal power struggles trumped collective strategy. Fueling the fire was Wike's uncompromising ultimatum: Ayu must go. As the dust settled from Atiku's primary win, Wike, stung by his defeat and convinced of foul play, demanded Ayu's immediate resignation as a precondition for reconciliation. Ayu, a Benue native and staunch Atiku ally, had promised during his 2021 chairmanship campaign to step down if a northerner became the presidential candidate, a pledge he conveniently reneged on, citing party rules. Wike's camp viewed this as the ultimate hypocrisy, arguing that Ayu's continued tenure violated zoning principles and symbolized northern overreach. In fiery speeches and closed-door meetings, Wike issued ultimatums: resign or face boycott. By August 2022, Wike publicly demanded Ayu's ouster, pulling his team from Atiku's campaign council and vowing, "We will help you since you don't want PDP to win." The Board of Trustees attempted mediation, suggesting Ayu resign after the 2023 elections, but Wike dismissed it as ridiculous, insisting on immediate action to install a southern chairman. This standoff exposed the PDP's leadership vacuum, governors wielding outsized influence, national executives paralyzed by factionalism, and a constitution twisted to serve personal ambitions. Ayu's defiance, backed by Atiku's silence, deepened the rift, turning the G5 into avowed adversaries. Ortom and others echoed Wike's rage, accusing the party of opportunism and betrayal. The ultimatum wasn't just about Ayu, it was a litmus test for the PDP's commitment to fairness, one it spectacularly failed, pushing the G5 toward open rebellion and highlighting how individual egos could hijack a national platform. The election night bomb detonated on February 25, 2023, as the G5 delivered their states to the opposition in a stunning act of sabotage that sealed the PDP's fate. Refusing to campaign for Atiku, the governors openly endorsed rivals. Wike backed APC's Bola Tinubu. Ortom threw his weight behind Labour Party's Peter Obi, while others subtly directed voters away from the PDP. In Rivers, Wike's stronghold, Tinubu won with over 231,000 votes against Atiku's 88,000. A humiliating rout attributed to Wike's mobilization of local structures against his own party. Benue followed suit, with Obi claiming victory amid Ortom's anti-PDP rhetoric. Enugu, Abia, and Oyo saw fragmented votes, with PDP losses in governorship races compounding the presidential debacle. Analysts predicted Atiku's big losses in G5 states, and reality delivered. The mutiny cost the PDP millions of votes, fracturing its national footprint and handing Tinubu the presidency. Ortom later justified the betrayal, citing Atiku's failure to address zoning grievances and the G5's belief that supporting him would perpetuate injustice. This wasn't passive dissent, it was active warfare, with governors using state resources to undermine campaigns, spreading disinformation, and boycotting rallies. The PDP's internal polls had warned of the risk, but leadership hubris ignored it, allowing the G5 to exploit violence-prone hotspots and voter apathy. The sabotage amplified existing fractures, ethnic tensions, corruption allegations, and a disjointed message, turning what could have been a comeback into a rout. In hindsight, the G5's actions saved Nigeria from potential crisis, as Wike claimed years later, but at the PDP's expense, proving how self-destruction thrives when betrayal goes unchecked. Behind the public drama lurked the secret meetings and resource drain, where Wike's clandestine pacts with APC leaders hollowed out the PDP from within. In August 2022, amid the crisis, Wike reportedly met Tinubu in London, horse-trading deals that included ministerial promises in exchange for electoral support, a bromance that blurred party lines. Similar rendezvous in France and the UK followed, with G5 members discussing conditions for backing Tinubu, including anti-Atiku strategies. These shadowy alliances, denied publicly but confirmed by insiders, diverted PDP resources. Campaign funds meant for mobilization were allegedly siphoned or withheld, with estimates suggesting billions of naira lost through ghost projects and diverted donations. Ortom admitted the G5's anti-PDP stance drained morale and finances, while corruption scandals like unaccounted oil revenues echoed the party's broader fiscal woes. Wike's camp froze state-level contributions, redirecting them to rival efforts, exacerbating the PDP's empty coffers. This resource hemorrhage wasn't accidental, it was tactical betrayal, exploiting the party's weak oversight to fund sabotage. The pact solidified the G5's power, but at the cost of PDP unity, turning governors into kingmakers for the opposition and exposing how financial opacity fuels internal implosions. The ripple effects cascaded into 2025, where the zoning fallout accelerated defections, culminating in Atiku's third exit from the PDP in July. Blaming betrayal and political opportunism, Atiku's resignation shocked the party, triggering a wave of departures. Governors and lawmakers fled amid blame games, with Wike's accusations against Makinde intensifying the chaos. Northeast leaders vowed to rebuild without Atiku, while zoning rifts threatened the upcoming convention. Damagum dismissed it as not new, but the exodus left the PDP in ruins, its identity lost and finances decimated. The G5's mutiny had birthed a cycle of defection, proving betrayal begets more betrayal. Wike's ultimate revenge, the defection and purge. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, an organization once touted as the largest party in Africa, was now a sinking vessel caught in a maelstrom of its own making. The architect of the final devastating storm was none other than its own former pillar and self-styled strongman of rivers politics, Ezenwo Nyesom Wike. His revenge was a meticulously executed political masterstroke that left the party structure in ruins, an event that would forever be known as the defection and purge of late 2025. The ministerial shockwave. Wike accepts the enemy's job. The first seismic shock came in August 2023, following the inauguration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. In a move that ripped the PDP's heart out, Nyesom Wike, a man the party had desperately tried to punish for his anti-party activities during the 2023 general elections, accepted the appointment as the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, under the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC. Wike's acceptance, a brazen move across the political aisle, was more than just a job. It was a declaration of war. He remained defiantly a card-carrying member of the PDP, daring the party's embattled National Working Committee, NWC, led by acting national chairman, Ambassador Umar Ililia Damagum, to expel him. The party's reaction was slow and paralyzed by internal fear, granting Wike the moral and political space to consolidate his grip from the Abuja center of power. The former governor had essentially traded his Rivers kingdom for a seat at the imperial table, a position that guaranteed him access, influence, and immunity from his former party's internal squabbles. The Great Defection Train and Expulsion. Wike's strategic elevation was the signal his loyalists in Rivers State had been waiting for. On Friday, December 5, 2025, the dam burst. The Speaker of the Rivers State House of Assembly, Right Honorable Martin Ameahule, led a dramatic and unprecedented defection of 17 members of the House from the PDP to the APC, citing the clear division and factionalization within the national PDP, a constitutional loophole that sanctions mass defection. Ameahule announced the move at a special plenary session in Port Harcourt. The defectors, loyal to Wike, essentially ceded control of the Rivers State legislative arm to the ruling party, stripping the PDP of its majority in its former stronghold. The PDP-NWC, finally jolted into action, responded with a swift, brutal counter-purge. On Saturday, December 6, 2025, the party's National Publicity Secretary, Comrade Ini Ememobong, issued a fierce statement condemning the defection and announcing the expulsion of the 17 lawmakers. The party declared that it would not allow its mandate to be ignobly and surreptitiously switched, and immediately announced its decision to activate legal proceedings to reclaim the seats in the Federal High Court, Port Harcourt. The PDP had chosen to fight, but the cost was its own internal stability. The counterattack. Rival structures emerge. The Wike faction, emboldened by their ministerial and legislative victories, launched their most audacious counterattack yet. Throughout 2025, they had subtly positioned key allies in parallel structures within the PDP. On Monday, November 3, 2025, a factional National Working Committee, NWC, loyal to Wike, led by Senator Mao Ohuabunwa as an alternative to the Damagum-led NWC, openly challenged the authority of the national leadership. This faction declared the proposed national convention of the party illegal, arguing that the true party structure resided with them. They set up rival secretariats in Abuja and across several states, demanding the immediate dissolution of the current NWC and the setting up of an interim caretaker committee. This deliberate creation of rival structures was a tactical nuclear strike, designed to create legal uncertainty. Wike's loyalists knew that if they could successfully challenge the legitimacy of the party's national leadership, all subsequent actions, including the expulsion of the lawmakers and the planned legal battles, would be nullified. The struggle was no longer about seats, but about who held the legal soul of the People's Democratic Party. The legal showdown and final betrayal. The legal battles officially commenced in the second week of December 2025, with the PDP's lawsuits demanding that the defecting Rivers lawmakers vacate their seats based on Section 109(1)(g) of the Constitution. However, the political atmosphere was so poisoned by the wave of defections that the legal fight seemed purely academic. The situation was exacerbated by two final, crushing betrayals that signaled the PDP's impending doom. Governor Ademola Adeleke's switch. In a move that shocked the Southwest, the dancing governor of Osun State, Senator Ademola Adeleke, formally announced his resignation from the PDP and declared for the Accord Party on Wednesday, December 10, 2025, in Oshogbo. Adeleke cited the party's intransigence, unending internal strife, and inability to reconcile factions as his reason, effectively ceding a crucial Southwest state to the opposition coalition. Siminalayi Fubara's APC defection. Just days later, the final fatal blow was delivered by Rivers State Governor Sir Siminalayi Fubara, Wike's own godson and successor. On Tuesday, December 9, 2025, at a stakeholders' meeting in Port Harcourt, Governor Fubara dramatically announced his defection from the PDP to the All Progressives Congress, APC. Fubara, whose administration had been paralyzed by the feud with Wike, cited the PDP's failure to protect him from the crisis, a crisis engineered by Wike himself, and his desire to fully align the state with President Bola Tinubu's political direction. Fubara's defection, celebrated by the APC state chairman Chief Tony Okocha, who presented him with his APC membership card, number 001, on Friday, December 12, 2025, meant the PDP was officially left with no single governor in the oil-rich South-South region, a region it had dominated since 1999. With this final, unforgivable defection, the People's Democratic Party stood at the precipice. Its former strongman, Nyesom Wike, had dismantled its structure in a key state, stripped it of its legislative majority, instigated a legal shadow war over its national identity, and witnessed the defection of its last governor in the South-South, followed by the loss of a major Southwest state. The once mighty umbrella party was now a tattered canopy, hemorrhaging leaders and mandates across the federation. Teaser. With leaders fleeing and the structure factionalized, is the People's Democratic Party's endgame here? The stage is set for a desperate final chapter in the struggle for the soul of Nigeria's opposition. The Last Stand. The National Convention and Legal Offensive. The loss of Rivers State, the jewel in the crown of the South-South, coupled with the strategic abandonment of Osun State by Governor Ademola Adeleke to the Accord Party on December 10, 2025, was the existential crisis the People's Democratic Party, PDP, could no longer afford to ignore. The air in the party's Abuja headquarters was thick with the scent of fear and rage. The party had been brought to its knees by Ezenwo Nyesom Wike's carefully orchestrated defection train. It was time for a final, desperate counterattack. The Last Stand. The Legal Blitzkrieg, Operation Mandate Recapture. The first line of defense was an aggressive legal blitzkrieg, Operation Mandate Recapture, orchestrated by the party's legal team in January 2026. This was not just about punishing the defectors. It was a constitutional war to reclaim the political legitimacy stolen from the party. The gubernatorial test case, Fubara versus PDP. The most complex and high-stakes battle was the suit filed at the Federal High Court Abuja, challenging the defection of Governor Siminalayi Fubara to the All Progressives Congress, APC, on December 9, 2025. The PDP's legal argument was a daring challenge to established judicial precedent. Citing the Supreme Court's position in the 2007 Attorney General of the Federation versus Atiku Abubakar case, the party conceded that the Constitution was conspicuously silent on penalizing executive defectors, governors, president, vice president. However, their argument pivoted on the fundamental principle of the electoral mandate. They contended that the governor's seat was tied to the party's performance and ticket, and the mass, unconstitutional defections he orchestrated, including the 17 members of the Rivers State House of Assembly, led by Right Honorable Martin Amaehule, amounted to gross misconduct and a betrayal of the electorate's trust. The ultimate aim was to secure a judicial declaration compelling the Chief Judge of Rivers State to initiate impeachment proceedings on the grounds of constitutional breach, thereby testing the limits of Section 143 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. The legislative showdown in Rivers State. The second front was the multiple lawsuits in Port Harcourt, demanding the immediate vacation of the seats of the 17 defecting lawmakers who had formally switched to the APC on Friday, December 5, 2025. The lawmakers, clearly coached by Wike's legal strategists, based their defense on the proviso to Section 109(1)(g), citing the deepening internal crisis and factionalization within the national PDP. The PDP, in response, countered that the alleged division was self-inflicted and engineered by Nyesom Wike himself, and that his formal expulsion from the party on November 15, 2025, nullified the legal grounds for the defection. Furthermore, the party highlighted the Abegunde versus the Ondo State House of Assembly case, where the court stated that only divisions that make it impossible or impracticable for a political party to function would justify defection and retention of a seat. The PDP argued that its successful national convention in Ibadan proved its national structure was functional and unified, thus rendering the lawmakers' justification moot. The outcome of this case would determine the fate of the state legislature and the efficacy of Nigeria's anti-defection law. The National Convention, the political exorcism. The political arm of the counterattack culminated in the PDP's elective National Convention, finally held in Ibadan, Oyo State, on Saturday, November 15, 2025. This event was not merely a change of guard. It was a political exorcism designed to cleanse the party of Wike's pervasive influence and establish an undeniable, unified legal structure. The Ibadan Affirmation. Following a courageous ruling by a judge of the Oyo State High Court in early November 2025 that dismissed the series of injunctions filed by the Wike-aligned factional NWC, led by Senator Mao Ohuabunwa, the convention proceeded. Ambassador Umar Ililia Damagum's tenure as acting national chairman ended with a strong show of legitimacy. The delegates, weary of the internal warfare, elected Barrister Kabiru Turaki, a former Minister of Special Duties from Kebbi State, as the new, substantive national chairman. Turaki's emergence, polling a consensus-building number of 1,516 votes from over 3,000 accredited delegates, was seen as a deliberate pivot toward Northern consensus and a disciplined, legalistic approach to governance. The expulsion hammer, 11 casualties. The most dramatic moment was the motion for the mass expulsion of all recalcitrant members. Moved by a prominent Board of Trustees BOT member, Chief Olabode George, the motion was passed by a thunderous voice vote. The convention ratified the final, unequivocal expulsion of 11 high-profile members, including Ezenwo Nyesom Wike, Minister of FCT, Ayodele Fayose, former Governor of Ekiti State, Senator Samuel Anyanwu, former National Secretary, numerous former National Assembly members and state chairmen. This act, performed by the highest decision-making body of the party, removed any shred of legal ambiguity. Wike and his allies were now political orphans, finally stripped of their membership and, crucially, of any locus standi to challenge the party's legal actions, or claim that their defections were a result of an internal party division they were still a part of. The PDP had chosen institutional discipline over political expediency. The fiscal and political fracture. Despite the legal clarity achieved by the convention, the fiscal and political wounds remained deep and immediately detrimental to the party's long-term health. Financial starvation. The loss of Rivers State meant the PDP was instantly cut off from a staggering amount of political funding. The APC now controlled the financial nerve center of the South-South, leaving the PDP reliant on its few remaining governors like Amadu Umaru Fintiri, Adamawa, and Caleb Mutfwang, Plateau, who themselves faced continuous destabilization efforts from the APC. Regional emasculation. The PDP lost its traditional claim as the dominant party in the South-South and South-West. Governor Fubara's defection rendered the entire South-South region, a bastion of the PDP since 1999, governorless under the party's platform. This spatial collapse drastically reduced the party's bargaining power and regional influence, accelerating the perception of it as a regional rather than national opposition. Wike's new war chest. Nyesom Wike, now a high-powered APC minister, was strategically repositioned. He transitioned from a mole to an open, formidable adversary, using the federal apparatus and his FCT portfolio to fund and empower APC structures in states previously controlled by the PDP, fulfilling his vow to destroy the party that dared to challenge him. The PDP's last stand had achieved internal purification, but at the cost of crippling political resources. The next 3 years would be a desperate race against time to survive the judicial scrutiny and rebuild a national platform on the ashes of Wike's devastating revenge, all while facing a financially and legislatively dominant APC. Epilogue. The shadow of 2027. The political landscape of Nigeria, following Wike's ultimate revenge and the PDP's desperate last stand in late 2025, was one of profound asymmetry. The defections of governors Siminalayi Fubara and Ademola Adeleke, coupled with the mass exodus of legislators, cemented the All Progressives Congress (APC's) dominance, accelerating a drift toward a near one-party state, a scenario many analysts had long feared. The implications for the 2027 general elections were not just severe, they were existential for the opposition. The judicial verdict, defining division. The political future of Nigeria hinged entirely on the outcome of the numerous lawsuits filed by the PDP under its new national chairman, Barrister Kabiru Turaki. The gubernatorial test case. The case against Governor Siminalayi Fubara was the litmus test. The Federal High Court in Abuja, under intense public scrutiny, was tasked with interpreting Section 109(1)(g) of the Constitution. If the court ruled that the PDP's internal strife, no matter how severe, did not constitute the type of division that permits a governor to defect without losing his seat, Fubara would be removed. This would send a chilling, stabilizing message to all elected officials, effectively ending the culture of opportunistic carpet crossing. The APC's argument. The APC and Fubara's legal team argued that the long-standing, globally publicized feud with Nyesom Wike, which included parallel NWC structures and multiple court injunctions, proved the PDP was indeed factionalized at the national level, justifying Fubara's move. The legislative floodgate. Should the Supreme Court ultimately side with the PDP and order the vacation of the 17 Rivers State Assembly seats, followed by the federal lawmakers' seats, it would spark a constitutional crisis. By-elections would have to be organized by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, in dozens of constituencies nationwide. While an administrative nightmare, this would be a powerful vindication for the PDP, reclaiming its lost mandates and restoring public faith in the anti-defection law. By mid-2026, a contradictory set of rulings began to emerge from the lower courts, ensuring the cases would all ultimately climb to the Supreme Court, prolonging the political turmoil deep into the electoral preparation cycle. The fiscal and political shock. The immediate practical impact was fiscal. Rivers State, a crucial revenue hub, was now firmly under the influence of the APC federal government, effectively cutting off the PDP's traditional financial backbone. Financial starvation. The PDP's ability to fund a successful national campaign in 2027, already constrained, became dire. The loss of Osun and Rivers governorships meant the party was starved of the crucial state funds necessary for mobilization, rallies, and media outreach. Wike's new platform. Nyesom Wike, officially expelled from the PDP and serving as the FCT minister for the APC, became the ruling party's most formidable asset in the South-South. He transitioned from an internal saboteur to an external warlord, using the immense political and financial leverage of his office to solidify the APC's hold on the region, effectively achieving his ultimate goal, rendering the PDP politically irrelevant in its own stronghold. The 2027 reckoning. For the PDP, the 2027 elections became less about winning the presidency and more about survival. The fading opposition. The mass defections crippled the legislative opposition. With a vastly reduced number of seats in the National Assembly, the PDP lost its power to veto, investigate, or even significantly challenge the APC's legislative agenda. This erosion of checks and balances damaged the health of Nigerian democracy, creating an atmosphere where the APC could operate with little meaningful political resistance. A test of unity. Barrister Kabiru Turaki's leadership was immediately tasked with forging unity among the remaining PDP governors and stakeholders, a Herculean task given the recent betrayals. He faced a race against time to redefine the party's ideology and present a fresh, disciplined, and cohesive front that was fundamentally different from the crisis-ridden party of the past. The new political calculus. The defections forced the PDP to seek alliances with third forces like the Labour Party, LP, and the New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP. The path to 2027 for the opposition lay in forming a genuine, unified coalition, something they had notoriously failed to do in 2023. As 2026 began, the question was not whether the APC would win the presidency, their position seemed unassailable, but whether the PDP could survive the judicial, political, and financial onslaught long enough to contest the elections as a credible alternative. Wike's ultimate revenge had done its work, leaving the once mighty People's Democratic Party standing naked and vulnerable before the final political reckoning.
Global Age Media.